Yeah, that's good.
What time is it there?
How?
What time is it there? I can barely see you.
It's 10 o'clock in the evening. How are you?
I'm
Nice to
alright.
see you. Can
Uh,
you see me?
hmm?
Can you see me?
uh, yes, you're very dark there. You might want to turn on a light or something.
Yes. Wait a moment, I will call guys.
Okay. That's
Maybe someone will come soon.
that's.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, well,
Hey.
Hey,
how you doing?
привет, Вова.
Hmm?
Good, how are you, Joseph?
Good, good. I hear this is a much more sane time.
Cool.
I posted. Apparently, Nate can't make it. He got a very late night last night, apparently, and he's out somewhere.
He's sleeping, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's our CEO as well as doing Derby, so he's getting called out for those things. I think he was out trading for investors last night or something. But
hmm
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Um,
Okay, so what's your progress on Foundation DB? Yeah, or
all that
how is
stuff.
it called?
Yeah, I mean, largely, I haven't written much code lately, but I mean, yeah, like in a sense, all of the entire drivers rewrite was gearing up so that we could do the next piece, which is going to be that, so that LiveDB can like, so it's just a module that you swap in and say, all right, now I want to use this set of code.
hmm
But yeah, yeah, I've spent the last month or so at work just doing like server ops stuff, which I found kind of annoying, and I'm going to be moving. But like I've talked to people, and I'm going to be moving away from doing that,
hmm
and moving back to doing like a lot of the open source ShareJS LiveDB stuff now, starting
hmm
with, which is going to be great. So yeah, so at the moment we're still in pre-planning stage.
hmm
Well, still in planning stage kind of thing. I've been kind of bouncing out ideas. The biggest thing that I'm not so sure about is how we'll do queries, like exactly what the query should look like in indexes and stuff. I mean, I've never written a database before, so
hmm
uh, um, I mean, yeah, like sure, I can have an index which just like sorts some field alphabetically or some set of fields alphabetically,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of queries which that won't be able to service. Maybe it will. Maybe that can do most things. It can do any
hmm
ranges and stuff on the indexed values. But yeah,
hmm Well, cool.
yeah.
Okay.
Hey, decent showing today. Um, it's also worth mentioning, and I mean, we'll I guess get to this, again. I'll probably say this a few times, but we're now running as of last Wednesday.
hmm
We're running Derby 8.6 in production. Uh, it turns out there was a bunch of like random little issues and stuff that were coming up with it, which we've run into and we've fixed all of the biggest issues that we know about. So yeah, so that's you know, good. And yeah,
Yeah, it's great.
yeah,
Yeah, we also run a bunch of applications and they perform really good on 0.6. So
Cool.
yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. There was a weird bug that Nate fixed the other day, which took us a couple of days to track down. It turns out that when the page was loading, the way it was bundling, it was sometimes the JavaScript would load and run before the page bundle had been fully loaded, which was causing JavaScript errors.
Well, don't you like have your bundles as async defer scripts
Yes, we
plugged
do.
into?
Right, except that there's no guarantee that this async defer script will run after the
Ah,
page is finished loading.
I see. Okay.
So after we figured out that was the problem, Nate just wrapped it in a um,
Mm-hmm.
window.on page load, and it
Yeah.
fixed it.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have any questions?
Vova, do you have any questions on Foundation DB or stuff?
No, I don't have. My misunderstanding was that I thought that snapshot is something important, but we can treat it as cache. So now I don't have questions. So that was my question.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay.
Obviously, still important for queries because Mongo depends on it, but yeah.
Yes, it's important for reads, but it doesn't. It's not important for writes.
Yeah. Yeah. We also had, which might be worth mentioning, we had a severe issue last Wednesday, and we almost lost like 800 job applications because there was a glitch in AWS.
In what?
There was a glitch in AWS. I'll answer your question in a second, Cryptic. There was in Amazon Web Services, and one of our database servers became one of our secondaries became disconnected from the other database servers, which shouldn't have caused any problems, except that it did. It turns out that MongoSkin is kind of unreliable for us, and MongoSkin freaked out and then started refusing to accept writes. So for several hours, our app couldn't handle any writes, so we couldn't modify any data because of MongoDB. And MongoSkin wasn't accepting it, even though the Mongo servers did the master, the primary, secondary resolution, and the Mongo servers worked correctly. But anyway, I'd really like to test that, find out what went wrong, make sure it never happens again. Probably move away from MongoSkin and use the native MongoDB driver that Tengen provides now, which wasn't around a year or two ago.
Okay, so can you recommend to use native MongoDB driver instead of MongoSkin for all of our projects also?
I think so. I haven't done enough work to isolate the problem. MongoSkin doesn't handle secondaries well. That's been my experience. We were also using a slightly older version of MongoSkin, so that might have also helped. But yeah. So Cryptic, what types of queries do you all need to run more than range queries, finding a specific value? There's a bunch of count queries that we have, so counting the number of fields. So as an example, our application has tags, and in the UI we display the tag counts. So we display how many documents have a particular tag on them. For better or worse, our tags are stored as separate documents in a separate collection, so that we can rename the tags without having to go and replace a string everywhere. But we need to, for example, be able to count the number of each tag. I guess that's not something that a classic index provides, but it's something that we care about. So for something like that, and that's really easy, right? You just store the number, and then when things get added or removed from that set, then you increment or decrement the number. But things like that. There's also some other queries. So we're running reports, and for reports, you imagine in our database we have a series of events, and we need to collate events and say, all right, I want to grab all of the events that happen in this time range, and then describe them in a particular way, and then count the number of count based on time ranges and all sorts of different things like that. It's the kind of stuff that SQL can do really, really well, but Mongo database queries aren't powerful enough to do that. So I don't know. If I'm writing an index, it's worth thinking about those things, even if we don't necessarily like implement a set of features that we need to do that. Certainly, the first set of queries that I want to be able to support are facets, like doing counts of documents and doing like range queries. But yeah, the thing that I'm most excited about in terms of queries is that we can start having live updates based on the queries. So, for example, if I specify that I want all people who are wearing a blue T-shirt, and the server will give me back a list, then as documents have the T-shirt blue property set and removed, as the index is updated, we can actually then propagate those changes to that set to all listeners who are listening on that particular on queries that involve that range, which would mean that then we don't have to poll anymore, which is kind of a huge deal. Yeah, we're having a performance issue at the moment with that enabled infinite scroll in our app, and yeah. When you update a doc in Mongo, does it lock that document? No, it doesn't. But yeah, we've got a bunch of we've got infinite scroll in our app now, and people are like scrolling down a long way and then leaving it as a background tab, and then the server on behalf of that background tab is polling Mongo occasionally to, when there's updates to the collection to find out whether or not any of the items in that giant infinite scroll list are updated, which almost always they haven't, but that's causing illegal load on Mongo and on our front-end servers, which, yeah, this is also going to fix. But yeah, that's those things. Yeah. Hello, more people. People seem to be entering and leaving. So. Yeah, leaving when they find out Nate isn't here.
You've mentioned that you're going to concentrate on ShareJS. What new features do you plan to implement?
Well, so there's a few features I want to work on. Actually, the biggest thing I want to work on is documentation, in both Live2B and ShareJS. There's a bunch of changes I want to make to ShareJS. I actually want to completely rewrite the doc class and remove a lot of features from it. The class, it's like 800 lines long. It's way too complicated. I, of course, want to finish the piece of work on cursors and projections, which the code is correct and works. It's implemented in ShareJS. It's just that in Live2B, you can't currently, it's not, the only work left to do is make it work with cross-server scalable servers. So if you have multiple servers, then I want that to work. The hard thing with making that work is that is just simply that if a server crashes, it's very important that that all of the cursors don't sit there forever. So there's this kind of shared state that you need between the servers around which clients are connected to which server that we need to deal with. I mean, I know how to deal with it. I just need to do it. Yeah, I was going to do it after doing the big Live2B refactor that I did about a month or so ago, but I got pulled off to do some ops stuff. So I'm handing off now. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I know that Nate also, although he's probably not going to get a chance to do it anytime soon, he's also quite excited to rewrite a lot of the code that deals with event propagation. So when there's a change in a document in ShareJS, propagating that through to the right set of elements in a page is, yeah, apparently it's a bit hacky at the moment and wants to rewrite it. So, yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
My name is Osman. I'm building on top of Airbase some projects, and it's interesting. And am I interrupting you, or because I had some questions?
No. We're just chatting.
Okay. We recently discussed why in the latest Derby version there is no transitional roles. Also, we had some issues recently reading CSV file, and it didn't we couldn't make it because we did it not in the component but in the controller, but we should do it in the component instead. And my point was that we tried to parse CSV from client and from the server side, and that's why we had some issues. And that's why we come to the idea that we should create separate component for taking data. As we usually do, we make a component which sticks to some UI, and we decided to make the component which will like some kind of data adapter which will help us in this case to take the data from the CSV.
It should be okay to do that in the server. That should work. You should do it via a model. So if you use store.get model and then add data using the model from the server, that should work correctly and be the same as doing it from the client. That shouldn't be any problems, but doing it from a component is a good way to do it. If you're going to do it from the client, from the browser, then a component is a good place. And even in terms of like modularizing that code, that's a good idea. So yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. I don't know why why transitional routes have changed as they have. I think there is some equivalent now, but I'm not entirely sure. Nate's the person to ask, and unfortunately he couldn't join us today.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know. Any other questions you guys have?
So what about WebSockets?
Well, so the other day I consumed an entire whiteboard with all the things that I want to do, and I really want to get WebSockets to put in. I'm actually probably not going to work on WebSockets because I think it's a great starter project for either someone in our team or someone externally to do. So I'm just waiting for someone to do WebSockets, or for someone in our team to have enough time, and I can sit down with them and talk to them about it. It shouldn't be difficult. The only things to do really are to you have to implement an API on both the server and client, and make it so WebSockets can reconnect. Otherwise, they won't reconnect, which is very simple. I've written that code several times. So yeah, it should be easy.
So, well, earlier you mentioned that WebSockets is not such a good idea because the order of packages are not.
No. WebSockets do have guaranteed ordering and guaranteed delivery order. Socket.io does not have guaranteed delivery.
Okay.
Yeah, WebSockets work great. They're basically just a TCP stream after the initialization with framing, and that's exactly what we want. So yeah. Yeah,
cool.
We're going to do some tests before we push WebSockets out into our application to see if there's some percentage of users who can't use our product because they don't have WebSocket support in their browsers or something like that. Which is an experiment I'm excited to do because I don't know. And it's like it might be 100% of our users who can use WebSockets now. It might be like 99%, and it might be like 95%, and those different numbers will mean that we'll have to do different things. Like 100%, great, let's put out WebSockets. If it's 99%, then why not? We should probably debug and figure out why not. If it's some particular companies, maybe they have some weird proxy set up or something, and I don't know what we should do about that. If it's 95%, we'll probably need some fallback strategy where it uses WebSockets so it can and then falls back to browser channel.
Well, I think that like most of your users are corporate ones, right?
Yeah.
So you have a hiring software. So aren't most of them use like old browsers like Explorer 8 or something like that?
We actually only officially support Chrome. We've made a conscious effort and a conscious decision to not spend a whole lot of time supporting old AE users for our product because we don't have enough time and there are plenty of customers that we can get. So we'll add IE support and add legacy browser support over time, but we don't have it yet. And we're waiting until we have more of a solid product. So with that in mind, Oh, and also all of our customers have to have Google Apps domains. Authentication is only done through Google Apps at the moment. So we're in a pretty good place. But yeah, I think WebSockets is supported. I mean, I'll just check. WebSockets are supported from IE10, and from every current version of Firefox, Chrome, Safari, Opera, Android, everything else. It's just IE9 and IE8 that have a problem. In theory. They've been around for a few years now, so that's okay. Yeah, and also Windows XP is old now, so I think that Windows 7 requires, like, I think it installs with IE9 and.
Oh, it's with 8 by default.
Is it with 8? Okay.
Yeah. So, like, currently, just tell all of your users to run your application in Chrome without any options, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So it should work. There's something else interesting with WebSockets, which is that, and this is information that I gleaned from working at Google. Google ran an experiment many years ago now, when I was still working there, to see whether or not WebSockets would work for some of the Gmail and stuff. So they had Gmail, I think it was, surreptitiously, like, quietly try and open up WebSocket connections in the background, and then it would report back what percentage of WebSocket connections failed or succeeded to be made. They found that the percentage of, like, WebSockets worked much more reliably over HTTPS than it did over HTTP, which is interesting. So yeah, that's another factor. If you're thinking about WebSocket support, then it's better. It's actually better if you use HTTPS on your site. Your users will be happier. And the reason is because of proxies. That proxies usually don't get to see any HTTPS traffic; they just pass it. But they do get to see HTTP traffic, and because of that, they can get confused by WebSockets over HTTP, whereas they won't over HTTPS. So. But yeah, so those are those factors. But if you feel like writing some WebSocket code, then by all means. I got started with a little Racer WebSocket library that's kicking around somewhere, but I never finished it. I didn't add reconnecting, and I found that there's a bug in ShareJS because of a bug in Browser Channel. Originally, Browser Channel, I was intending to use the WebSocket client API, like just to make it look like WebSockets. And then ShareJS should just be using WebSockets or the WebSocket API, but I made a mistake, and there's a couple API discrepancies where if you actually use a real WebSocket, then it doesn't work properly, because I assume that the data property is JSON, and I assume a lot of things. So yeah, so there's a couple. I mean, it's fine. You just have to deal with that. I think ShareJS also will try and send messages while the socket is still connecting, because that's something the WebSocket Browser Channel supports, but WebSockets doesn't support. So. Anyway, there's some random little bugs that need to be fixed to make it all work, but it shouldn't be that hard. The code's pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, by the way, isn't your ShareJS on its own supports WebSockets, or?
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. ShareJS does support WebSockets, but there's some. It's not super easy to get it working.
Okay.
I've been meaning to do that work for a while, but to do it, I want to first of all update with Browser Channel to use actual WebSockets API. And then I'll move ShareJS across to using the new Browser Channel code, which will also make it support WebSockets better. I mean, the only problem is, like, the onMessage handler, right, in ShareJS. So when ShareJS gets a message, it thinks that if it's a proper Browser Channel message, it is an object which has a data property, and the data property is a string that contains the actual message. ShareJS assumes that it's already been JSON parsed, I think, and it assumes that it's not in the .data property of the message. So, like, that needs to be fixed. Or you could write a WebSocket wrapper that just simply passed the JSON parse, and then passed it through to ShareJS, and that would work. But that's a bug in ShareJS that I need to fix. It's like it's stable at the moment because Browser Channel has the same problem, the opposite problem. But yeah. Yeah, actually, maybe I should fix that this weekend. That would be really simple to fix. And meant to fix it a while ago, and then got distracted with some other bug. I thought, oh, while I'm at it, I should change browser channel to use Node.js streams, but that was a terrible idea. Yeah, for a variety of reasons. But yeah. So that's the state of WebSocket. It's just waiting for someone to do the work. If you feel like implementing WebSockets, that'd be great. We'll use your code. I'd love to. Browser channel is a pain in the ass to set up with sticky sessions, certainly with AWS, but more generally, all of your load balancers have to do some sticky session work to be able to make it scale properly, and WebSockets don't have that problem. So it simplifies a lot of things. So, yeah. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Well, not 100% because of the language too fast, but
this is being recorded, so you can watch it slowly if you want.
yeah.
That's useful.
Okay. So when do you think we're going to migrate to using the Foundation DB?
I have a bad history of making promises and then saying, oh, I'll do it in a month, and then it takes a year and a half. So I am nervous making making predictions. I am hoping in a few months. It depends on how much time I end up having and what I spend time working on.
Okay, so are you going to write some kind of a thing related to like the same that you did for migration from 0.3 to 0.5, the Igor, or like you had some kind of a script which helped us to move our database from old version to the new version?
Yeah, I will. That's a good point. We're going to need to write that script for us, so we'll share it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you have your data in MongoDB, it will continue to work. That's the rule. So the way LiveDB works, obviously, you can store your data in any different place, and you can use any driver and any offload. So it will all continue to work. But there will be another option of another driver option.
Okay. So there are going to be both of them, Mongo and Foundation. So
yes. Okay. Although I will recommend people use Foundation. At least at first, Foundation DB, the indexes will not be as powerful as Mongo indexes. Oh, sorry, the queries you can make won't be as powerful. You'll be able to do more things with Mongo, but they should be a lot faster in many ways.
Well, in any case, currently we don't support projections in LiveDB, right? Like full projections. We only have some workaround with those virtual collections. So currently we don't have the whole power of Mongo. So.
Yes, but you do have the whole power of Mongo for queries at the moment. And so I will be taking that away too.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll write some scripts to make that transition better. That's the downside. The benefits are that it should be a lot faster. It won't have to poll, which is not just faster. It's n squared down to n with the number of users, which is obviously a really big scaling problem, which we're running into already. And when data is updated, which updates a query as a result, that data will be propagated immediately instead of being propagated, a second later. So it'll be faster, and it'll remove a single source of failure. So right now, if Redis crashes or if the Redis server becomes inaccessible, then your app will crash, which is something that I worry about for us because it could happen, and and if that happened, our app would crash. Our app would be automatically restarted, but it would crash. So
do you use some custom Redis providers, or do you have your own Redis setups?
We just have a server on AWS, EC2, which is the Elastic Compute server, just running Redis. Not special in any way.
So you have a single instance of Redis.
We have a single instance of Redis. You can't use the Redis cluster stuff with LiveDB because we're using Redis as a lock, and you can't do locking on top of Redis if you have multiple Redis servers, as I understand it. There are ways that you can do locking on top of MongoDB, but it's about 100 times slower. So yeah, but maybe not. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's not slower enough to matter. But certainly someone could write a Mongo driver which did everything purely in MongoDB. That's quite doable. The way that you do it is you say update this this document, but only if the version is currently 10. And then Mongo will update the document, and it will tell you whether or not a document was updated. So you can use that to conditionally update documents only if and sort of do update locking kind of thing. That has the same effect as what we're doing with Redis. So that's possible for someone to write that. Yeah. I'm very happy to keep talking to Pavel about all of this stuff. Does anyone else have any questions?
Well, I guess all of the other questions are related to the Derby.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. I tried to get Nate here. Yeah. Maybe next week, I hope. It's been a very rough couple of weeks for us. There's been a lot of things that we've been putting off because of the of our rewrite on top of the new Derby code, and now that that's done, there's a whole lot of work that everybody's been running around doing to catch up. It ended up taking us longer than we expected. We ended up cleaning up a lot of code and doing a lot of bits and pieces of work to make that happen. But yeah,
have you moved to using Git merging as cryptic proposed in the first conversation? Or like there was this feature of Git when you can you can define your packages, your components inside the main project, but they're gonna be like a separate Git repositories. Or you still writing all of your code inside one project, so all of your
No. We did do that. So our setup now, which is much better, we have a private NPM registry set up. So we have our own NPM registry, and then we make every single different component is its own package. So we have a Node.js package for like our icons and for our drop-down menus and things like that. So they're all different packages, which means that we can version them using Node.js NPM versions. So if we make API incompatible, like API breaking changes, we can update the major version number, and then that way we don't have to update all of our services at the same time. They should all just keep working, but when we update them, then they'll use the new code. And then we have so that's our setup. And then when we do a deploy, we're using Docker now. So we do a build which does npm install, installs all of the packages that it needs from our private npm registry, and then builds them.
Docker?
Yeah.
Can you write it in the chat?
Yes.
Docker.
It's very interesting. It's cool.
Cool.
Do that. As to Cryptic's question, Nate and I are going to go to NodeConf. Are you going to be there, Cryptic? Sweet. Yeah, we'll see that. That's one of the big reasons why I want to do a big documentation push. I want ShareJS to be in a semi-reasonable state by the time we get to NodeConf, even though there's obviously a million things to work on. We've been using a lot. We haven't started using CoreOS or any of this stuff on top of it, but we're really happy with it. It actually works really well.
I got two quick questions. Is it true that two guys are working on Derby framework on building, and how many people are working for Lever Up?
Our company is now, I think, 13 people. Derby was written by Nate, and Nate is still the main maintainer, and I wrote ShareJS, and I'm the main maintainer of that. Most of our people are engineers, but mostly work on our app itself. And yeah, so it's mostly just two of us. We want to, and we are slowly starting to bring more people in to help out with Derby and add documentation and things like that. We find it. I mean, it's hard to decide how much time to spend on Derby versus how much time to spend on our app, which is what we're actually selling. But yeah, and that's the reason why our documentation isn't very good, and why testing, why there's a lot of things that we haven't done a good job on. But yeah, I personally want to spend a lot of time improving a lot of those things, and I'll be working mostly full time on open source stuff again, because it's been almost less than 2 people working on it for a while. But yeah, still small. But if you want to help out, Nate always has a long list of things that of ways to help. So if you feel like contributing code, then by all means, we would appreciate that.
Yeah, the thing that we are able to contribute is concerns the documentation and providing maybe translation or some other stuff.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, well, actually, Vova has already started to making a new site for 0.6 documentation, and he already has a good design for it. Like, Vova, can you send a link on it?
Yes, I'll find it.
So kind of like a thing that we were thinking about doing is to make this site kind of a new derbys.com or something like this.
Cool. Oh wow, this is really nice. Huh. Yeah, this is great. Looks gorgeous. I'll show this to the team, actually. That's really cool. Yeah, no, I would. That's yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I'm about to start rewriting the ShareJS, and it has similar mockups, but nothing quite as fancy. From a documentation side, it's also worth mentioning. Ian, one of our other engineers, has plans. It turns out there's a few clever ways that you can debug Derby apps by clicking on comment nodes, and then you can get the component's context from the comment nodes that surround the component inside the source. And we have plans to, well, we want to make up like a Derby debugger kind of thing, which lets you click on components and then see the JSON of the data that's backing that component, and also show the template and let you edit the template and see the component update. I think.
No, you mean even right inside your browser?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
that's that's great. So it's gonna be like a layer on top of the Derby website itself, like layer on top of the Derby framework, or.
Yeah, or even something you just enable in your application, and then yeah, I haven't looked at the React Dev Tools for Chrome, but yeah, okay, if that's worth looking at, I'll take a look. It turns out, well, and the other way that we could write it is, it turns out that you can write custom Google DevTools add-ons, so an extension can target the DevTools, and you can use that to make it so that you have extra tabs in the Chrome DevTools, and then use those tabs to show Derby-specific things. Um, yeah, I'm not surprised. Oh wow. Okay, this is cool. Huh. I actually, as an aside, I really want to make a mock-up of like Power React with ShareJS and have that as a demo. There's no reason why we couldn't, and I think actually it would be a really good fit for React.js as well. Just take all of the ShareJS code and put it underneath React. It wouldn't be as powerful because React would still have to re-render the entire template when the data changes, but yeah, it would be cool.
Well, they say that the main thing is that they don't re-render it each time. They just like make patches.
Well, they sort of do though. I mean, they do a bunch of work in JavaScript to do a diff, and they do manual diffs. With ShareJS operations, Derby doesn't need to do a diff. It can actually just make the exact set of changes it needs to make to the DOM. Derby 0.5 was quite bad about this, and it would over-render, so it would render more DOM elements than it needed to in many occasions. And this is one of the reasons Derby 0.6 is much faster. For example, if you have a document that has a list inside, and you insert something, say at position 10 in the list, if you have that list bound in Derby, Derby will do the correct, like it will create the DOM elements and then do a DOM element insert for that particular element inside the list, and everything will get shuffled automatically. Whereas React will generate a JavaScript version of the DOM, then do a diff of that JavaScript DOM and the previous JavaScript DOM. Find the things that changed, find out that its new DOM has this new element added, and then create the DOM nodes to actually add that to the page itself.
So all of this functionality of Derby is inside the saddle, right?
Yes, I think so, as I understand it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for that link. But yeah, that'll be sweet. I'm actually really looking forward to NodeConf, which is This is one of the advantages of being in San Francisco, that these things happen nearby. And the 3-day camp, and Substack and Isaacs and all of the Node people will be there. Oh, whereabouts are you? Oh, right, yeah. Yeah. I actually should be traveling more in the US to go to random things that are in the Midwest or in Boston or whatever. There's a lot of random conferences that I'm missing, which would be good to go to. Yeah.
Was you living in Australia when you were working on Google?
Yeah. There's no offense in Australia. We have some Node.js, some JavaScript meetups, which are quite good, but that's about it. Anyway,
I guess that's a problem for our part also. We don't have any big meetups of Node.js programmers at all in Eastern Europe and in Russia.
Yeah. Although that said, there are some events that look fun in Germany sometimes, and in I don't know. Sometimes I see events and I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. Where is that? And then it turns out it's in Europe. There's a lot of things in Europe, although it's I'm sure expensive to travel around and so. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I might. It's just about 12.
Not for now.
I guess that's all.
Cool. Yeah. As I say, I'll try and drag Nate kicking and screaming to the next time we do this. He's been very busy, but this is how these things go. So yeah.
Well, thanks for meeting with us.
Absolutely.
It was helpful.
Great.
Yes,
I'll
good to meet you. I'll
see you in what is it? Is it next weekend or is it the weekend after? Whatever it is, I'll see you at NodeConf. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I don't know. Same time next week. 2 weeks. Cool. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye, Joseph.
Bye, Bo.
Bye.